Hey there, Howell Rotary Club. What's going on? I'm Roger, Social Good Promotions. Sorry I couldn't be live and in person with you today. Unfortunately, Governor Whitmer has not given us the green light on being able to do things in person, so we continue to do Zoom meetings and enjoy learning how to be an excellent presenter in a video-based, non-physical type way. So this is my opportunity to share with you, at the request of Karen and all of you, and your curiosity around how perhaps we might be able to get ourselves restarted now that we have a target date for when we're supposed to be able to do that. So let's jump into it. There's a framework that I've created, but we were talking last night. I think the unemployment claims are up to about 33 million filed, which means certainly there's more than that of people not working. So from my perspective, this really does represent the single largest human capital reset, like really ever, if you think about it, at least in our lifetime. Most people are not Depression era folks. So for those of us who were not around in the 40s, this is really by far the single biggest capital reset that will really probably ever happen. And so there's a lot of anxiety and emotion and stress that go along with the possibility of what that might mean for people. And everybody has a way of reacting somewhat differently to stress. So our expectation is that there's going to be all kinds of different reactions. And for those of us that are in business, it's really important for us to understand what we're going to have to do once things start get going again. So I've had the misfortune, I guess, or good fortune, depending on how you want to look at it, of having to have been a salesperson and a sales leader in two organizations throughout the years that were going through bankruptcy. So we've gotten well versed in the strategy of trying to perform in a crisis. And so when this all started happening, I immediately dusted off those old playbooks of what we had done in those two other situations and used a lot of that as the basis and framework for creating a timeline for us to consider what we might do from a re-entering the economy perspective. So from my perspective, I really think there's kind of 6 buckets that you really need to be organizing your thoughts in. I'm going to go through these relatively quickly, and if anyone's interested in learning more about this, please feel free to reach out to me. We can talk about each of these things in more detail. I'm happy to do that with each and every one of you. And if you have other friends and family members that are also considering how they too might get themselves back into the game, please feel free to share this with people or request it from me so that I can send it to you via email and you can pass it along. I'm happy to do that. So let's jump into it really quick. So from a dates perspective, we now know that May 28th is our target date for the shelter-in-place restrictions to be lifted. So today being May 9th, we have opportunity to really finalize what a timeline would look like within the stretch of time between whatever day you get started and whatever day you pick for yourself after May 28th as being your intended reopen date, so that you know specifically what kind of timeline that you're dealing with, so that you can prioritize your activities in each of these other categories. So by setting up your timeline, what you're really giving yourself is an opportunity to recognize how to best use these remaining days between whatever day you get started and the day you announce that you're going to be open for business, to take advantage of the highest priority activities that you have identified as being necessary during this time and pause. Next most important thing to do is to assess where your fires are. Let's figure out where are the places that your business has been most heavily impacted, and what are you going to have to do in order to stem that tide in a way that will prevent that fire from consuming your business. Obviously, the biggest fires are the most important ones, but what you are also doing in this exercise is assessing not only where are your biggest fires, but where are your other fires that are also burning, so that as you put them out, you can start to figure out ways maybe to put out 2 and 3 and 4 fires at a time, as opposed to just fighting the biggest fires that you have in the short term. Certainly you're going to do that for a period of time, but if you have more opportunity in your timeline to be able to assess more fires by having gone through the exercise of figuring out how many of them that you have best opportunity to really direct your own activity. Next up is really taking a look at your finances. And I don't really mean, the P&L or your balance sheet or those kinds of things. Like, you're all good business people. I know you know how to manage your business on a day-to-day perspective. Really, what I want you to think about more in this instance from a finances perspective is, do you have some available leverage that you might be able to use at this moment in order to be able to gain some kind of competitive advantage for a number of reasons? Because the thing I want you to think about is, really never before have we seen the amazing amount of liquidity that's available so cheaply. So even if you didn't get a PPP or a EIDL or any of those particular stimulus packages that the government has put out, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're precluded from participating if you have a great relationship with a banker. So, or if you have personal liquidity that you might be able to tap into to be able to give yourself the chance to be able to purchase something that might transform your business. Could you add a piece of technology? Could you add an additional complementary line of business? Could you purchase some software in order to allow yourself to be able to automate and become more efficient? If you have the opportunity to do any of these things, you should strongly consider it, because probably more so right now than ever before, you're going to be able to get an amazing deal on the things that you could potentially purchase. So why not consider in this moment where you might be able to apply some of that leverage in a way that might benefit you, really in ways that maybe yesterday or a month ago or 6 months ago would not have been possible. And by taking advantage of that leverage, you really give yourself the chance to get a jump start on your competition, who may not be as willing to consider the possibility of using some leverage to gain competitive advantage. So spend some time thinking about it. And I know it's somewhat scary to consider that, wow, like, I would borrow right now in this time of uncertainty. Why would I risk the possibility of something bad happening and me being extended from a credit perspective? But if you're looking for the opportunity to gain competitive advantage, this is the best opportunity to be able to do that, just purely from how inexpensive things are going to be. Let's think about your team as well. When I say your team, I want you to think about both the people that were working for you before all of this happened, and understand the perspective of the possibility that some of those people might not come back. There's so much opportunity now in this reset because of the number of people that are unemployed. There's going to be the possibility that perhaps somebody might go try to pursue something different than what they were doing before all of this happened. Or maybe even, this pandemic has affected them in a way that they realize that maybe they want to pivot to something differently. So you're going to have to evaluate what percent of the population that you were employing will or will not come back, and take an assessment. If you think that this is a real possibility, pick a number, 10%, 20%, one person, 5 people, whatever it is that you think is going to be the number. Just put a stake in the ground and evaluate against that, because this is going to be another opportunity for you. If there are people who won't come back, maybe you don't need to refill those positions. Perhaps there's an opportunity for you now to reimagine the way that your work has been done, and also consider some of those other efficiency gains like automation or outsourcing or things like that, that potentially you may not have been comfortable doing up until now. But because of this change in business condition, it would be really important for you to assess where are there those opportunities for you to perhaps be able to do that now as you reopen. So that, again, remember, the idea here is to try to get a fast start against your competition. So if you're able to become more efficient in this process and someone that you compete against has not, you're going to have competitive advantage again. And from the team perspective, what I really want you to think about, and for many people, this is, I have people within my building, but then I have people that are my banker and my accountant, my tax person and my lawyer. I hope you have a marketing person on retainer, or that you have a relationship with, an HR person. All of these things are things that traditionally businesses that are busy don't necessarily evaluate who they have on their team. But this was going to be a tremendously great opportunity for you to consider who you have on your team today, and who maybe you still need in order to be able to be this reimagined fast start business that gives you a leg up on your competition. And not all of us will have people in each of those categories, but there's also 3 additional ones that I would want you to consider that maybe you've never even thought about before. I would really strongly recommend thinking about a success coach right now, or an accountability coach, somebody that is going to hold you accountable to whatever timeline that you're putting together based on this information that I'm giving you, so that you get the best opportunity to take advantage of the time in pause that we have right now, and not allow yourself to be distracted because you know that you have an accountability coach that's going to be looking over your shoulder at some regular interval. Stress is tough. A lot of people are having a difficult time managing their stress and coping with it in a healthy way. So I would say a mindfulness and meditation resource would be tremendously beneficial. I think if you ask people that are coping with stress well, how they're managing to do that, I bet you there's some percent of that population that would tell you that they're using mindfulness and meditation to help achieve those results. So if you too want to be able to cope with your stress in a way that would allow you to have better performance, mindfulness and meditation would definitely be something to consider. And then last but not least would be a referral team. So I'm in this organization called SearsNet. We are a paid organization, and we work to help each other's businesses. And during this period of pause, we all doubled down and went into mastermind mode and have been bringing business challenges to our peers about our own businesses and allowing the expertise of the group to work on our challenge instead of trying to approach those challenges on an individual basis. So I would tell you, from my perspective, you absolutely cannot benefit more than you can from being in that kind of group. And then if you add those other pieces and parts to the rest of your team, that should comprise the whole. And then lastly, I want you to consider your assets. What pieces of content, what things do you have that tell the story of your business? And if your business has changed, then you're going to want to consider how you're going to have to change your assets in order for them to be an accurate reflection of what your business is at this very moment. So assets could be sales collateral, PowerPoint presentations, what you say to customers when you're trying to sell to them, all of the social media stuff that you do, the videos that you would create. Like, everything needs to be a reflection of the story that you want to tell your business tell your customers about your business at this moment. And if those things are not in alignment with the story that you're going to want to tell, that's going to create some friction for you with your clients, because when you talk to them, they're expecting that everything about your brand is going to be consistent with the story that you're telling them. So you're going to need to spend some of this time in pause, really dialing that stuff in and spending time in working on those pieces and the things that are necessary from an asset perspective. And then lastly, what I would tell you is, if you have been disrupted, if there's businesses that you feel like maybe are nipping at your heels or causing you some problems, or in some way, shape, or form causing you, like, that you know that brand, you worry about them, you think they might take your customers, spend some time thinking about what you might do with your business right now to help counter some of those problems that they're creating for you, and use this opportunity to reimagine that part of your business to insulate it a little bit better from those competitors. And then secondarily, if there's a way that you can transform your business, like I said, if you've decided to use some leverage and to get a new piece of equipment, get some technology, do something that would then turn you into a disruptor for your competitors. So there's ample opportunity for you to reimagine what you are in this moment and use the time that you have available to you to be able to do that. But there's a foundational element that you really have to consider that layers into this. And this is really the important piece of what you do along with the timeline. And it's the element of trust and the way that trust is going to transform in the new economy. This is my bet, but before we get into it, let me explain. I know it's probably not Joel Comm that said this first, but I think there's this universal truth that people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And a lot of people, it's so universal of a truth that it's not argued. But what it's not, by virtue of that, what happens is that people don't really consider the mechanics of what know, like, and trust are really all about. And so as we're reimagining ourselves and considering what's going to go on in our relationships going forward, I'm saying that trust is a really important element. And that for most people, when you're out trying to create new relationships, there's this element of fear that goes along with prospecting or looking for new clients or business development or whatever you want to call it. And for me, I equate it in many ways to it being somewhat like downhill skiing for a lot of people, which is this notion of I'm going to go to the top of a hill and I am going to strap boards to my feet and I am going to hurtle myself down a hill, careening kind of without much control down the hill and hopefully not fall down, not hurt myself, or not in some way, shape, or form embarrass myself in a way that would be public and humiliating and something that I feel like I wouldn't be able to recover from. So for many people, this whole notion of getting on this journey to know, like, and trust is scary and something that a lot of people aren't really necessarily excited to do. So, but on the other hand, you have your friends and your family members, and like, you know, that there's other people out there encouraging you and saying like, hey, if you just get over your own problems and your own worries, you'll gain momentum as you hurtle down this hill, so that when you go from no to like to trust, it's kind of an inevitable process that once you get going, that the opportunity for you to get to trust will exist and it'll be there. Unfortunately, I don't think that's true at all. I actually believe that the journey to trust is more like climbing pyramids. So if you think about it from that perspective, it's really not something that you need to be scared to do. It's really what you need to do is commit yourself to the process, that you recognize that I need to start this journey with every person to ultimately get through these stages of our relationships from no to like and to trust. And so really, it shouldn't be something that you should be fearful of. More importantly, it should be something that you dedicate yourself to. It's, I know that this is going to be a climb. And I recognize that there's going to be effort that I'm going to have to invest in this process of building the relationships with people that are necessary to create trust. And that by committing myself to the journey, what I'm really doing is reinforcing my own belief that this exercise is necessary on a daily basis in order for me to be seen in the way that I potentially want to be seen on this journey from no to like to trust. Because I believe for many of you, as was the case for me in this last little period of time during shelter in place, that there were people who were trying to sell either to me, or I witnessed people selling to other people that were not in that top of the triangle of trust. And boy, did that feel icky. And the concern is, as we reopen the economy, if you're not seen as trustworthy, then really not only do you have the chance to ruin your reputation, but do it permanently. Historically, if you stubbed your toe in a good economy and you had a relationship with someone, they were typically willing to somewhat forgive you. But in this new situation, because of the way that all of us are going to react differently to what's happened during this period of time, if we don't start with that baseline of trust, we really run the chance and the risk of getting that permanent black eye with the potential prospect that we will not be able to recover from. Because as we've said about this journey on the pyramid, is that there are going to be instances where we're going to have to change direction in the climb in order to be able to continue the journey, because obstacles like a pandemic sometimes present themselves, and we recognize that it's going to be necessary in this climb now to make a move in a way that would allow us to still continue to be on the journey to trust, while recognizing just how many people in this time called us, called Social Good Promotions, called you, and sought out your expertise and the things that you were capable of doing for them. If it wasn't many, what you need to recognize is that this perhaps was the reason why, was you've not invested the time in creating those trust-based relationships that you need in order to be successful with as many people as possible along the way. So what we're saying is that what you need to be considering in each new interaction, once you've decided to reopen your business, is, where am I on the trust index with this person that I'm interacting with at this very moment? Because as you make the journey from no to like to trust, there's going to be changes both in the way that people are going to react to you and the things that are necessary for you to be doing in that moment, once you recognize where you are on this index with that person at that time. And so essentially what we're doing is, as we're moving up our trust index, I'm giving you a framework and teaching the possibility of being able to recognize that there are things that you could do now to create that you could then implement when you recognize where you are in this trust index with people. Because once you've established an understanding of where you are, you can immediately pivot to the activities that you've already practiced and become well versed at, and then share that activity with that person in the attempt to see if you can grow in your trust relationship with them, because their behavior is going to change accordingly. So recognizing that in most instances, we start with a weak relational index, I'm saying really what you should be doing in those instances is not selling, but in reality, educating or informing people, somehow providing them a measure of entertainment in what has been a really stressful time. Or most importantly, if you can inspire them, they will remember your brand. And in that process, you then move up to being able to start showing them what it is that you actually are capable of doing, that you're really, really good at. And by recognizing where you are in that stage and where they are in their business and their attempts to reopen, you can actually then move from showing them things to actually giving them things, some of it for free, some of it that ultimately they'll start to buy from you because they recognize that the things that you're creating and giving to them are valuable, that it's assisting them in their efforts to do whatever it is they're trying to accomplish as they're trying to get themselves back in business. So by doing that, you're giving them ample opportunity to see you as a trustworthy partner to the point where eventually they'll start giving you their money. And once they've started giving you their money, it's really important for you. And this is where, if you were in the top of the trust triangle with folks during the pandemic, you had the opportunity to just bring them things that you knew they were going to need. And they would absolutely consider them. And in many instances, they would actually buy that stuff from you because they recognized that you knew exactly what it was they needed in this moment. And you were able to not only recognize it, but you were actually able to develop something and then deliver it for them in a way that's going to move them forward. That is it's incredibly valuable. And if there was an opportunity for people to bring those to you in your business right now, wouldn't you feel so gratified by the knowledge that these people have about your business and what they're able to do for you? So if you've created that team that we talked about previously, the hope is that that's what's happening for you right now. But if not, then what you need to be doing is develop your own pipeline of ways for that to start occurring for your business, and then apply this framework to your relationships going forward by creating the things that you need to be able to provide to people as they reopen, whatever that client base might be. So it's really important for you to give some consideration to that, because the other piece of this that you need to think about is that people fall into three categories. And this pandemic and the stress that it created is going to reveal this in ways that maybe have never really truly been as obvious before. But people really fall into three categories: the helpers, the hoarders, and the hustlers. And all of them are valuable. All of them are important. All of them are really good to have when you're looking for ways to get a leg up on the competition, so that if you know that you're a helper and you need a hustler or a hoarder, you can go find those people and add them to your squad. But the first most important thing is, in this trust index, is you have to recognize who you are. And then you have to recognize who they are. Because if you're a helper and they're a hustler, you need to be able to meet that hustler where the hustler needs to be met, not create some friction between you and them because you're different kinds of people. So by having some self-awareness and some self-recognition of which you are, adding in the trust index, and then applying which of these filters, it really gives you the best opportunity to spend this time in pause working on the stuff that you need to create in order to be best ready as possible when it's time for you to get back to the business of doing business, not only for yourself, but for the people who typically have been doing business with you, because they're going to come back in three categories. The people who it's business as usual, they've always worked with you, they want to work with you the exact same way. People who used to see you as a luxury may now see you as a necessity. Or there's people whose businesses have completely been blown up and they're looking for help on how to reimagine their business. And perhaps you now and what you're capable of doing in ways that person never imagined before are the most important thing they need in order to reimagine what it is that they're going to do. So by being able to put some bets around which of these three categories your business is going to thrive in, you have the best opportunity to be the most ready coming out of this pause, get yourself back in business, and get after it, because it's going to be time and there's going to be a chance for many people to actually get a jump on the competition if you've spent this time wisely, prioritized well, use the time that you had available and the resources that you might have available to develop things that will give you that leg up, and then get out there and share it with everybody, because you're on the climb to trust. And we recognize now, coming out of this pandemic, that trust is going to be the single most important thing. You as Rotarians, more than anybody else, recognize the test that's necessary. And now, because of how you've been trained as Rotarians, you have the most unique opportunity possible to take advantage of that by applying these principles within your own business. I'm a consultant. I'm available for hire. If you need help with this stuff, I'm giving away 1-hour sessions for free. And then if you want to talk about perhaps deeper engagement, we can talk about that, but I'm here to help. I hope this was valuable to you. Karen, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to present this to the crowd. I really enjoy it. Every time I give it, I think about something a little bit new. So there was a little pieces and parts in there that I shared with you all that are kind of a reflection of where we are at this very moment. So I hope it was incredibly valuable for you. And like I said, I'm here for you if you need me, and I'm happy to get at it. See ya.